Ready to level up your career? Text DISH to 44043 now to dive into a world of exciting technician opportunities at DISH. From cutting-edge technology to a supportive work environment, DISH offers the perfect platform for your success. Connect with us today to discover how you can be part of a dynamic team driving innovation. Connect today and join the DISH family, where innovation meets opportunity. Text DISH to 44043 to kickstart your journey towards a rewarding career.
What's the easiest choice you can make? Window instead of middle seat? Picking a vendor who sends a great gift basket? Outsourcing business tasks you hate? What about selling with Shopify? Whether you're selling a little or a lot, Shopify helps you do your thing, however you cha-ching. Shopify is the global commerce platform that helps you sell at every stage of your business. From the launch your online shop stage to the first real-life store stage, all the way to the did we just hit 1 million orders stage. Shopify's there to help you grow. Whether you're selling scented soap or offering outdoor outfits, Shopify helps you sell. Wherever and whatever you're selling, Shopify's got you covered. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/try. Go to shopify.com/try now to grow your business, no matter what stage you're in. Shopify.com/try.
This is a More Than Just Podcast production.
Welcome to Spellcast Season 6, Episode 52. My name is Tim. I am in Toronto, Ontario. I'm joined by Jonathan Kuline in Mississauga, Ontario.
Hello there, kids.
And we're also joined by Jaime Lippis Jr. in Seattle, Washington.
How's it going?
Okay, cool. So we do have some fellow check from last week. I was talking about Jimmy Cliff, and we were talking about the I Shot the Sheriff song, which was actually written by Bob Marley. Jimmy Cliff was the author of The Harder They Come, The Harder They Fall, which was another reggae classic, which Bob Marley did make famous, but it was he was the singer of that one, and they actually made a movie around that song. So that's where my confusion was between Bob Marley and Jimmy Cliff, another Jamaican star from back in the day. And I did see that movie. I saw The Harder They Come at TIFF in the 80s. It was one of the first time I went to TIFF, and strangely enough, we saw The Harder They Come, and then we decided to stay in the room. We just, because back in the day you didn't have to leave a theater if you were sneaky enough. You just stay in your seat, and they showed us the Sex Pistols movie. I forget what it's called. Anyway, it's a big classic. It was like a Sex Pistol retrospective-y thing and all that kind of stuff. The one where Sid Vicious sings My Way and all that stuff. And we were talking about the new. I originally had the Return of Rey Skywalker on the show notes, but I've since found out that it's going to be probably called New Jedi Order, and it will be directed by Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy and written by Stephen Knight. That's the one that Daisy Ridley was talking about last week. So, I mean, the recording I was listening to was recorded months ago, but just played on the podcast last week, right? There you go. Do you know who that Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy is, Jonathan? She won some documentary awards.
I recognize the name, but I couldn't tell you. I'm just going to look her up, but I couldn't tell you off the top of my head. Mm-hmm. I know she's Canadian. Canadian Pakistani journalist, filmmaker. Yeah. Okay.
Any movie titles?
Let's see.
She won some awards or something.
Yeah, I see a lot of documentary work. Oh, here we go. Fiction. Oh, she did Ms. Marvel. She did the Ms. Marvel TV show. That's why I knew the name.
Oh, that's where we know her from. Yeah, see, it's so familiar.
Yeah, she directed the Ms. Marvel TV show.
Okay, cool. And it was Kathleen Kennedy. I guess she's the one that runs LucasArts these days, right?
Yeah, Kathy's the CEO of LucasArts.
Yeah, she's the one. Daisy Ridley was saying that she got invited to lunch, and she just thought she was going to go hang out and have lunch, and then found out that they wanted to do another Skywalker movie.
Yeah,
a Rey Skywalker movie, that is.
I don't go to lunch. It's like, hey, new job.
Yeah, it does happen. I've had that happen too.
There you go.
Yeah, but it shores up Jonathan's theory that it really is only one family in the whole Lucas, sphere, right?
Yeah.
Skywalker.
You know what Stephen Knight wrote the screenplay for? Tim, you'll appreciate this. Eastern Promises.
Oh, really?
The Cronenberg movie. He wrote the screenplay for that.
So he's another Canadian dude.
No, he's British. It says he's CBE, so he must be British. Yes, Marlborough, England. But yeah, I mean, he's got he's the creator of the BBC Peaky Blinders and has written for all kinds of different screenplays for movies and TV shows. True Detective. No, not True Detective. The Detective.
So
SAS Rogue Heroes that was on a couple of years ago. All the Light We Cannot See on Netflix.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
I mean, CBE, you have to be born in Britain to be a CBE as opposed to an MBE?
No. So you have to be a British citizen to be able to be knighted in any way. You can't be any other citizen to be a CBE, MBE, or otherwise.
I thought it was where you were born.
No, you have to have citizenship. So the reason I remember this is because Conrad Black here in Canada gave up his Canadian citizenship so that he could become a member of the House of Lords.
Okay, well, I might give up my Canadian citizenship if this podcasting thing turns out, and I get knighted for it or whatever, right?
Well, so, hope springs eternal. You can have that back. You were born there.
Well, I can actually get it back. I think my sister's got hers back, right? Because you just have to send your parents a birth certificate to prove that at least one of your parents was born there as well.
Unfortunately, thanks to some poor decision making, you can only become a UK citizen. You can't become a European citizen, which I can theoretically because my dad was born overseas. So
that's true. Yeah. Well, I mean, what do I need to see Europe for? This Great Britain is what else is there beside Great Britain? Right?
Yeah. Oh.
All right. Yeah. There you go. There's some lore for you, Jaime. So this is a post I found. I followed William Shatner, that is, on the Twitter machine and things like that. And he had posted that he's got an auction happening, I think today or tomorrow. He's decided to empty out his closet of all the paraphernalia that he's been given over the years. I know he's got like a Montreal Canadian Shatner sweater, and I think there's a Leaf one and Oiler one, a bunch of other things. And some of his shoes and leather
selling
coats and
suits
stuff.
and coats and all kinds of it's a closet clean out at the Shatner estate.
Wherever that's worth.
Doesn't say. Well, I mean, it says it's Armani, Brioni, Gucci, Dolce & Gabbana. It's not. I would imagine he's probably well tailored.
Yeah. But I mean, it's either the Leia's bikini or Shatner's Montreal Canadian sweater, right?
He does have a Leafs jersey in here too, for what it's worth. So
that's true. I did mention that.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, and Jaime's got a big scoop here because we haven't been talking about Paramount at all for the last 4 episodes.
Yep.
So in the seems closer than any other deal kind of deal, so hasn't closed, is expected to close in the first half of 2025, according to the nice folks at The Verge, saying that Paramount Global is going to merge with Skydance, which I was not familiar with Skydance Media, but apparently they've been the production company behind a lot of stuff. It says here behind Titanic and Top Gun Maverick, so they didn't really have to go too far away from somebody who knows what's up with what they do at Paramount.
Skydance's entry into streaming, is that the idea?
Yeah. Okay. They're a production company.
And so this removes the Redstone family, who's apparently had controlling stake in Paramount for a very long time, and inserts a new family, the Ellison family. So David Ellison is apparently the son of Oracle's Larry Ellison.
Yep.
Yeah, so he's going to be taking over as chairman and chief executive of quote unquote temporarily dubbed New Paramount. So we'll see what they call it.
So there is a relationship here already too. They were the producers of a bunch of products that ended up in the end being for Paramount. So the Mission Impossibles, Star Trek Into Darkness, Star Trek Beyond, Jack Reacher, like lots of projects that are sort of intertwined with the Paramount brand. So there's a logical path there as well. And there was some speculation that in amongst all these deals that we've been talking about over the past number of episodes, that there were some of these companies that were going to basically break up Paramount into pieces and, keep the things they wanted and sell off other parts to other, players in the game. it sounds like what Skydance wants to do is basically make Paramount, merge its production with the Paramount productions and distribution and use all that together. So it sounds like this is a kind of a good thing, because in theory, this is a synergy and it's not just a hostile acquisition.
Cool. Well, we'll have to see where that goes.
Yeah. Either way, they're going to raise your rates on your Paramount Plus subscription.
Yeah. So, yeah. In terms of things following up on my discussion about Vision Pro, plus the launch this weekend of the Vision Pro in Canada and Germany, France, and the UK. 2 weeks ago, it was released in China and Hong Kong and Shanghai and somewhere else. Those three, I think. Anyway, I produced this list. We were talking last week about the Vision Pro movies that were available. I threw the device on, and over a couple of days, went through and tried to find as many titles that claimed to be 3D either on the iTunes Store or through Disney Plus. As I mentioned before, I think Disney Plus has about 21 videos that currently, like if you have Disney Plus and you have a Vision Pro, tomorrow you can start watching those movies. They're on this list here too, and I've got links to all the stores here. Oh, it looks like I missed Black Widow. But there's one actually strange one down at the very bottom. A couple I couldn't find. But where is it? The Days of Future Past, X-Men Days of Future Past, is listed by Apple as being 3D, but it doesn't appear to be 3D. Now, what I found was weird about this is that if you have the Crave app or the Prime app or the Tubi app on your Vision Pro, those are iPad apps, so they run in sort of a compatibility mode. They're not native, so you get a sort of what's the word, janky experience, right? And but they won't play 3D. So if you happen to have a video that's listed on the Apple Tunes, the way the Apple TV app works is if you have these other apps on your device, it will offer to open the movie in that app, right? But I sort of found a couple of workarounds. Like if you scroll down on the Apple TV app, you can see a thing where you can either go to you can either search for the movie if you own it and play it from your library, or buy it. Basically, that's pretty much the only way you can get a 3D movie going there. That said, Jonathan, you also asked me last week if anybody could log in, and it turns out that I actually am one of those few people that have two Apple IDs. I have one Apple ID that I use for my iCloud and my document syncing and all that kind of stuff, but I use a different one for purchases. So I am actually logged in with two different Apple IDs. So in theory, one could log out of my store Apple ID and log in as Jonathan's store Apple ID, or Jonathan, if you board my Vision Pro, if you know what I'm saying, nudge, nudge, wink, wink. You could log in and watch the titles that you have, but only if they're on this list, right? So like I went and looked for the one you mentioned last week, the Clone Wars, and it doesn't seem to be available. In fact,
I don't think it was a 3D movie to begin with. I think it was just the oldest one.
Then you can watch that. That's on the Disney Plus. You can watch that app now, or that movie now.
Yeah.
But any movie that's here, movies. What I was going to say is movies that I know for a fact were 3D, right, are not on this list, and it kind of scratch my head as to why, if the title's available in 3D, like what is holding up them from digitizing it and making it available to people? I don't understand.
Yeah, I'm just looking through this list, and obviously it's quite a long list, but I do have a number of these titles.
So
if I had to guess, I'd say I probably have maybe half.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, so last week, like the press release said 100, right? And the press release for the US says 150. But just for those of you transporting at home, I managed to find 219 apps, or 219 movies on this that are on this list, right? And some of them I know for sure. Like and the other thing too is I went through and I had an old affiliate marketing thing that I set up with Apple years before, even well before I became a developer. And so I have this link where I can go in and one at a time I had to go through and make a marketing link for this to be like, it's the thing where you can cross promote on your website and stuff like that. But I was chatting with some friends in Australia and Germany this week, and they both tried these links, and these links work for them as well. So it must be a kind of a smart link that it links to the asset, and then depending on what store you have, it will go to that store and show you the title correctly.
Yeah,
right?
smart links. You're right.
Well, because I mean, like the thing about it is, like an American link on iTunes is different than a Canadian one because we have that pesky French translation in our movies, right? Whereas they don't necessarily have that in the US titles, right? Plus, often the packaging has like multilingual packaging, right? Graham?
No, I was going to say I'm hovering over these links and they do say tv.apple.com.
Yeah. What happens when you click? Well, if you click on one, it should open your TV app. That's what I'm saying, right?
Yeah, and this is this is nice. It doesn't have that pesky .ca, which like, oh, okay, let me copy this link and then change 2 characters. Swap one out, add in a new one, rather than just doing the look, just make it all .com, figure out who's logged in, which store is appropriate for this, and then redirect them there.
What was interesting though is I did originally try that format, where you have I think it was itunes.apple.com/US and then the ID number of the asset, which is how you find games and apps, right? But that wouldn't work for the movies. Like I think ever since Apple TV's come out, and I think they've kind of abandoned iTunes, if I'm not mistaken, there's no iTunes store that I'm aware of anymore, other than for music, right? And books.
Well, yeah, they moved everything over to the TV app for sure.
Yeah, so I had to go and I tried, programmatically figuring out how these URLs work, and I just couldn't do it. So eventually, like I said, I went to that website and I went through one at a time. Took me a couple of hours, maybe 2.5 hours to kind of go through the whole list. And then I went back to the TV app and I realized that I had lost a bunch of them in the list, right? So I had to go back and add a bunch in yesterday too, right? So like Edge of Tomorrow is one of my movies. I know it's got your favorite actor in it, which you will never watch.
Love that guy.
Yeah, I mean, I would get that one. But like I said, I did end up watching Blade Runner 2049, like I said, and it is a beautiful movie to begin with, but it is amazing in 3D, right? It's probably on this list so far, it's my favorite movie.
Yeah, I mean, I remember watching it in IMAX 3D and thinking how impressive it was, and it's a shame you can't replicate that in your own home very well anymore. They don't really have that. There was a while there where a lot of stuff was coming out in 3D, and now it seems very spotty. I did see that the Deadpool Wolverine movie is coming out in 3D, which is interesting.
Yeah, it's funny because there is an IMAX app, and there's a couple of 3D movies in that too. Like I didn't go to the IMAX. I've only been able to find 3 or 4 titles in the IMAX app, but there's a free movie you can watch there. It's like on the space station kind of thing, and that one you can watch in 3D, and it's amazing, right? So because you're like floating above the Earth and stuff like that, right? And there was one of the Godzilla titles just came out. Like it was not even listed on the Apple TV app. I found the Godzilla X Kong.
Yeah, that one just came out on Crave.
New Empire. That one there, yeah. Like for instance, like I actually had to uninstall the Crave app on my device to sort of be able to verify all these, right? So yeah, but I think it's a good list, and so I've been putting it on Twitter, and you go ahead and retweet my tweets if you don't mind. Then get the word out that this list is available and people can click on it and find stuff.
I'd like to play a new game, and I'm going to ask Jaime to play with me. Jaime, other than Tim, how many people do you know own one of these devices? My answer is 0.
I'm sure somebody's going to raise their hand and be like, oh yeah, it's somebody from more of the MTJC crowd of folks, but I can't think of anybody that I personally know other than Tim. Personally.
So I personally know at least 20 people who have them, maybe more.
Wow.
Ooh, there you go.
Yeah. I actually know one. I know two other people in Toronto, or 3 other. I know one in Halifax, and one in Toronto. Wait, actually Waterloo, and one is picking his up tomorrow that I've been chatting with. So it's out there, and I regularly go to meetings, and like I said, I have that conference I went to. There were people there, and people had them in California when I went to WWDC. They had them there, and yeah, Mark on the podcast on the More Than Just Code loves to tell me it's a dead product.
I don't think it's dead. I just think it's still prohibitively expensive.
Well, it's funny because Greg Joswiak was on the talk show the day after the keynote, and he said he's the head of marketing at Apple, and he's like, yeah, so it was like this with the iPod, and look how that turned out. It was like that with the iPhone. Look how that turned out. Yep. it was like that with the internet. Look how that turned out, you know?
Yeah, and I feel
like
the same thing I feel about this is the same way I felt about the iPhone. I didn't get an iPhone until they got to the 4th generation. And because, as you'll recall, the 4th was a huge step forward, and also the price hit a reasonable point where I was like, yeah, now I'm ready to move to that kind of device. I feel like it's going to be the same kind of thing. Like, it seems like a cool device. It's just right now it's damned expensive.
I mean, I bought my first one. I think it was like $550 Canadian for me to buy the first iPhone. And then after that, they were subsidizing through Rogers. You paid through the nose in the long run, but it was easier to get, pay you'd pay like a couple $100 to Rogers, and then they would add it to your bill. I remember one time, even buying through Rogers, I had to fork over like, $300-400 to get one.
Oh yeah.
But now I just buy them out. I just don't bother with it because I'd rather be without a contract.
Yep.
Just because it gives you flexibility. But yeah, it's not a cheap. I mean, phones aren't inexpensive. iPads aren't inexpensive. It's arguable. Like I've been saying, the one thing about having the Vision Pro, obviously being an early adopter because of work, but the access to the Apple TV app and all of these assets and this experience has 10 times improved my appreciation of the Vision Pro, especially things like the Lego app and other things like that. It just makes it much more fun, right? So
yep.
I just can't wait for the rest of you to join. But like I said, I do have this every second Tuesday. People are listening on the show. You want to hit us up at 5 p.m. my time in Toronto, Eastern Standard Time. 4 of us get together on our Vision Pros, and we have a virtual, it's called spatial persona meeting, and it's like it's a bit like the scene in what was it, the Terry Gilliam movie where the have the severed heads. Robin Williams he played a king, and he had this saucer on his neck, and he could float his head around.
Oh yeah, what was that?
That was the one with Sarah Polley.
Yeah.
Anyway, but you're like a floating head, and you got hands, and you can kind of sort of see your shoulders now. It's gotten much better. You actually have ears now on the persona, which it's kind of funny to watch it grow over time. But with the latest version, and like I have pictures of my friend in Australia high-fiving my friend in Berlin in real time in my space, like as if they were sitting here in the basement with me, right? So
yeah.
Someday the 3 of us will be on a podcast doing this, right? So, and people will be tuning in.
Stay tuned for our 300th episode.
Yeah, the special 360 episode of Morgan. What's this thing called? Podcast.
Podcast.
Right? Anyway, so link in the show notes if you're out there, you're getting a Vision Pro and you want to find out what's what. Check it out. Right, enough about the Vision Pro. Back to reality, sort of, and. Let's talk about the spoilerific trailer.
Yeah, that's why I kind of usually skip through these and try to unfocus my eyes just in case the trailer gives away too much. This is the apparently final name, because there have been a lot of names we've definitely mentioned on the show. Agatha All Along, with Agatha Harkness from the WandaVision series in her own Disney Plus series. And it dealing with still some of that weirdness that she got left with by Wanda, right? This one apparently makes her seem more like a crime detective, but then semi spoilers here. Then she kind of goes into 1950s Leave It to Beaver mode, quite literally during part of it. So weird stuff going on. It's coming out in the vaguely Halloween season. September 18th is a little early for Halloween, but short. But by the time they get into the meat of the episodes, I'm sure we'll be right in the Halloween season.
Yeah, probably it's set to culminate around Halloween, which is, I guess, makes sense to sort of build the hype towards Halloween season. So you see a lot of that with, horror / spooky stuff starts trickling out in September for that whole season. The joke is that, just like Walmart, they're going to get in there a little early and make sure that you've got all your Halloween needs met. But it does, it looks like this sort of picks up from where we left Agatha in the end of WandaVision, where, she sort of she lost her powers, Wanda kind of trounced her, and it looks like she sort of wiped her mind and stuck her somewhere and gave her a kind of a turnabout kind of play, because Wanda was in this town where, you know, she was sort of living these sort of sitcom lives and didn't know who she, you know, was and was kind of out of it. And so it seems like she's kind of done the same thing, dropping her into a crime procedural TV show instead of a Marvel witch show. So, yeah, I found myself watching this trailer and thinking it feels like the character was cool. I love Catherine Hahn. I love some of the supporting actors that they showed in the trailer. Aubrey Plaza, obviously, huge fan. But I still found myself thinking, like, this reminds me of so many projects where they're like, oh, this character's so great, we should do a spin-off. And it's like 3 years later, and you're like, why did I like this character again? Why do I care about this? Like, I feel like it's going to be a reinvestment period. So hopefully it clicks quickly, because if the trailer's any indication and they're taking the slow, like, we have to sort of find out where she's gone since then, and then we have to find herself again, and then, you know, like, I'm like, oof, I don't know if that's a good idea. Like, maybe you want to remind people why they like this character quickly.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the reason I said spoilerific was because for me they ruined part of the surprise for me, like already, because like if I had when I started watching this trailer, I'm like, did Jaime give us the wrong link or something? You know, because like the whole cop investigating this murder, and, you know, typical of those kind of like movies or TV shows, right? Reminds me of the what's her name, the woman from Titanic, Kate Blanchett.
No,
yeah, they bring up Mayor of Easttown in this Verge article.
Yeah, that's right.
Mayor of Easttown. It sort of had that sort of vibe to it, right? And then they kind of like, oh, then the reveal of looking at the punch card or the library card and then seeing Wanda's name, kind of spoiled it for me in terms of like, that would have been a great surprise to just leave that in the first episode and not put that right in the trailer.
Yeah.
Right. For me personally. Right. Because they had lots of funny moments. I mean, like the you know, no right mind witch would join your group, and she says, I'm not looking for right minded witches. You know, like, that's kind of like, that was a funny bit. You know, they could have used that in the trailer. There's lots of pieces of Agatha, I'm sure, and the other supporting cast that they could have put in, rather than, you know, doing the big reveal right in the trailer, right? So like, we don't need to watch the first 20 minutes of the first episode, in other words, right? You know? Yeah.
I mean, it's a bit of an epidemic when it comes to trailers. But luckily, this is the first of 4 trailers we're going to talk about here, and we can decide which ones are good ones and which ones are bad ones.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah. Well, speaking of which, so I put this on the notes here, Tim Bandits trailer, because we always put our name before the link so we know who. See what I did there? Time Bandits. That trailer is out, and so I watched this, and of course I have watched, Jonathan, you probably watched Time Bandits a handful of times.
Since I was a child,
yeah, like I've watched it repeatedly, and I've seen it, and I saw it on the big screen finally. I own copies of it. You know, I'll stop and watch it whenever it's on. A couple of things I noticed about this. Well, first of all, I noticed that it does seem to follow the same storyline as Time Bandits, the movie. And I didn't sort of see a reveal, like one of the biggest surprises in Time Bandits is Sean Connery appears in the middle of the movie, which is just great, right? Yeah. But so it does sort of follow it in, but I thought politically correctly they weren't using little people as they called them in the original movie, right? The bandits are, you know, it's Lisa Kudrow and a few other people are the Time Bandits who find this kid named Kevin and take him on this big adventure kind of thing, right? And I won't spoil too much for people who haven't seen the original movie, but I just thought it was interesting that, you know, in this era, they kind of recast those roles in a much more progressive way. And then they showed the evil doer and his group of people seemed to be kind of on the short side, if you know what I'm saying.
Well, first they show God, right? They show God, and then they show the devil, which are the two rival sides that are chasing the Time Bandits.
Remember, he's a fallen angel, not the devil.
Yeah, that's right. But one of them is Taika Waititi, and the other one is Jermaine Clement, right? So that was pretty funny. Like, obviously, those two are, you know, collaborators on many things. What We Do in the Shadows, not being, you know, among the better of them. But yeah,
one of them's from the flying. What is that? That Flight of the Condors? Is that
Conchords,
one of the guys?
Yeah, Flight of the Conchords is Jermaine Clement, and he was on. What was that? Legion.
He was on the pirate one too, right?
Yes, Our Flag Means Death, yeah.
Our Flag Means Death, yeah. I watched that whole series after all.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, I mean, so the production company's good. The movie's interesting. We'll see what they can do with the show, right? So it's kind of, I guess, it's a retelling of that. It must have been a book or something, maybe.
I don't know. I thought it was a Gilliam. I thought it was a Gilliam.
Yeah, Gilliam extravaganza. Yeah.
I love it. I love the Time Bandits. This is right up my alley. It's fantasy. It's sci-fi. It's funny. Like this is my jam. So I'm certainly on board for it. And when you step back, like we talk about this, obviously in a lot of circumstances, would this movie have been a better Netflix show or a better show where you can watch something over a longer period of time, invest more with the characters? Time Bandits is perfect for that. I even as a kid, I was like, man, I wish they could have spent more time going more places and meeting more characters. And it's just a fun movie. It's, as you say, Tim, it's a little dated in places, and obviously not the most woke thing now in retrospect, but at the same time, it still holds up decently, and yet this makes sense to do, and I like the idea of getting 10 hours of it as opposed to just 2.
And R2D2's in it too.
Yeah,
the original one.
That's right.
Ronnie Baker.
Kenny
Baker. Sorry. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You're up next, John.
Yeah. So they're doing an animated version of The Watchmen, and I wasn't sure what to take from this. They've done this on, DC Animation, Warner Brothers Animation has kind of always marched to its own drummer. They don't really care about the continuity, interference, or anything with what's happening on the movie side. They kind of get to tell their own stories. They kind of pick and choose the stuff that they want to do. And so they've done some good stuff and some bad stuff. I have certainly enjoyed a lot of what they've produced over the years, but not all of it, certainly. And, some of it's not for me, and that's fine. I wasn't sure what to think about Watchmen, because the Watchmen movie definitely has some moments that I really enjoy, and it's one of my all-time favorite books. It's just an absolutely essential read, especially if you grew up in the area, in which I did, because it's very much about the Cold War and just that paranoia and fear and everything. But I wasn't sure how well it would adapt to an animated platform. Well, the trailer came out this week for the chapter 1 of this. I think it's just a 2-parter, and it looks amazing. It looks so good. I am more hyped for this than I was for the Zack Snyder theatrical version that they did. This looks really good. The animation looks tight and modern. It looks very, very, very true to the book so far from what I've seen. I will be curious to see where the derivations are, but it looks like, if you're a fan of the book, I think this might be what you were looking for all along. So I'm really curious to see how well this is realized in its full form as opposed to a trailer, but it looks really sharp.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, to me, from my perspective, which I've only seen the movie, it just seemed like a movie again, or the same story, but maybe they'll go into more detail or something, or...
Yeah, I mean, they certainly took some... they had to take a bunch of stuff out, because obviously if you're telling a tight, 2-hour movie or whatever, I think it's actually pretty long. It's a 2.5-hour movie, but they still had to cut chunks out. It was originally, a deeper text. So it'll be interesting to see what they do and don't decide to include in this one. It really is, at its heart, it's a mystery story more than anything. It's about Rorschach trying to figure out who killed the comedian and why, and then slowly working his way through this sort of post superhero, rise of the superheroes, sort of dark 1980s world, and sort of seeing how he can piece this together. It's really a crime noir. And the movie version was a little less crime noir, a little more like, it almost embraced the superheroic part of it in a way that it probably shouldn't have. So again, I think it as much as it is to do with content, it's to do with tone.
Mm-hmm.
Jaime, have you watched the other Watchmen, and are you a fan? Have you read the book?
I've never read the book. I have seen the Zack Snyder one, seen the TV series from HBO. HBO? Yeah, I think it was HBO. And this looks interesting as well. The animation style does make me think of Marvel's What If. Kind of got that cell shaded animation going on. I don't know. It just seems like another cool adaptation. I'm a little confused. It says available on digital, not on streaming, not on Max yet. I guess they're going to sell it first.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a digital release first, and the idea is obviously you can rent it for an exclusive period of time before it moves on to other things.
Right. And kudos to this person in the comments on this YouTube channel. It says it's supposed to be a conversation between Superman and Rorschach. Superman says, "What's your superpower?" I ask questions. And an extra bonus point, just somebody says, "We already have somebody that does that far better." The question. Well, there's some deep cuts there.
So for people who don't know, this was originally proposed by Alan Moore, who wrote the original series. So in the mid 1980s, DC Comics, which was owned by Warner Brothers even then, bought the existing rights to all the characters from Charlton Comics. And Charlton Comics was its own company in the 1960s and 70s that eventually went out of business. And so DC bought all those characters. And some of the characters that they bought during that purchase are characters that people know now. So they know Blue Beetle. They know The Question. They know Captain Atom. There's a bunch of characters that were part of this. Peacemaker was part of that deal. So there were sort of these non-DC characters that were being integrated. So when Alan Moore pitched this story initially, he wanted to tell the story basically as a coda to the Charlton universe. He wanted to basically take those characters. So Rorschach was supposed to be The Question. And, all these characters were actually supposed to be characters that had been taken from that Charlton universe. And at that point, DC was like, no, we just bought all these characters. We're going to integrate them into the DC universe. You can't have them. Change this. So he changed them subtly so that you don't have to, as Jaime points out, you don't have to look very hard to see the parallels, but it's very much deliberately meant to be like that. So yeah, if you're a fan of that sort of era and the characters, you can sort of see the traces of what it was supposed to be initially.
And now you know. So
this
has been another Comics Book Corner with Jonathan.
One more trailer for us to talk about, and that's the quote-unquote final trailer for the Umbrella Academy Season 4, which is coming in early...
Is this the final season?
Final trailer for the final season, yeah. So they put a couple of teaser trailers out for the final season. The season's dropping on Netflix. It's dropping all at once, as they do, on the 8th of August. So... yeah, they're going to drop this whole final season that will hopefully wrap all of the storylines, which is really funny because I'm not sure that the creators of the Umbrella Academy are actually finished telling their story. So this is kind of going its own way. But it's kind of everything I think you expect from the final season of Umbrella Academy. There's an apocalypse coming. Oh, we've got to stop another apocalypse. Oh, there's a bunch of family trauma. Oh, there's going to be some dancing. It just seems like it checks all the boxes as far as what you're kind of looking for in a final season of the Umbrella Academy. Anything jump out to either of you?
Well, for one thing is I haven't watched the third season yet, so...
Oh, well, that's probably going to be important to watch the fourth season then.
Yeah, I would think so.
It will be very confusing as to, like they always end every season with okay, it nicely wraps up that season, and then there's the cliffhanger for, oh no, they've made everything worse.
Yep.
They solved the problem, but the cure is worse.
Yep.
You'll definitely want to, recap on that, Tim. You've got some time to do so. Otherwise, I'm sure there's a recap video somewhere that's like 15, 20 minutes.
Oh, no, I'll watch the whole thing. I'll watch it. It's just been on my list of things to. I mean, now that I've got access to it somewhere, sure, Netflix, I guess, right?
Yeah, it's on Netflix. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Looking forward to that one. I really enjoy that show. It's a great cast. They really, it's exactly what we just talked about with some of the other, Time Bandits. This is one where getting to immerse with the characters, getting to really meet them, getting to know them has really paid off. So I'm actually invested in the characters by the time they get to a last season. Are these, is this couple going to hook up? Is this person going to be happy? Are they going to get along? Is they going to reconcile? All that plus fun action and things blowing up and crazy quips. And yeah, they're doing an adaptation of a great comic book called Criminal. Criminal is by Ed Brubaker is the writer of it, and it's a crime noir. It's great. It's Sean Phillips, the artist on it. They do these sort of little, sometimes intertwined, sometimes separate crime noir stories, and so they're doing this adaptation of it for Amazon, which I did not even hear they were doing that, which I'm super excited about. But on top of that, they're starting to build this really cool cast for it. This week, the cast got a big addition in that one of the lead characters is going to be Emilia Clarke, of course, was Daenerys on Game of Thrones. So that's a pretty huge get for a show that I was already way into. So yeah, it's really interesting. But other people who are going to be on the show, Charlie Hunnam from Sons of Anarchy is going to be on there. John Hawkes, Adria Arjona, Kadeem Hardison. There's a really cool cast coming together for this show. If they do it true to the comic books, it's going to be amazing because it's this really kind of gritty crime noir, modern crime noir. It's sort of set in the now. I think this has potential to be a real, really interesting series. So I'm really excited about that one. Some sad news. We got a couple of deaths this week. This one was so weird. So Benji Gregory, who was the little boy in the TV show Alf, unfortunately died this week. He was 46. They still haven't done an autopsy. They're still trying to figure out what happened, but apparently he either fell asleep or passed out in his car in warm weather, and he was there in his car with his service dog, and they think that they died of heat stroke. Very sad. Very sad story. But, it gives us an opportunity to look back and think about just, he was a fun, kid character. He was the perfect playmate / straight man for this, hilarious, puppet character that was so popular for so many years in the 1980s. I remember Alf when it debuted. I remember it being a big cultural phenomenon. And so I think all of us have a memory of watching Benji along with Alf as they were sort of the best friends on the show. And so, yeah, really sad to hear about his passing this week. And obviously tip your cap for, a great performance as a child actor. And as we say goodbye.
Yep. I vaguely remember Alf. I remember him wanting to eat the cat all the time. But
he did. He certainly did.
I don't remember. I remember the father, but I don't remember the rest of the family.
Yeah, and he just actually passed away not that long ago too.
Yeah, what was his name?
Oh,
that guy from that show.
Yeah, I'd have to look it up. I don't remember off the top of my head. I can picture his face for sure, but I can't remember it.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. So I put this one on here too. This just literally. It's funny because I saw something about Shelley Duvall yesterday. And I'm not sure if it was related to this news, but they announced today that Shelley Duvall has just passed away.
Mm-hmm.
And you may know her from The Shining and a few other things. I remember Nashville was a movie that we went to see when we were quite young. I was not into country music at the time, but my sisters and I used to go see movies at the Penn Center in St. Catharines, and Nashville famously was the first movie I ever walked out of. But I have since gone back. And watched it, and sat through the whole thing. But yeah, it just didn't sit right with me. It just seemed kind of weird. But in retrospect, it was probably right up my alley. But the other tie-in with Shelley Duvall is she was one of these star-crossed lovers from Time Bandits.
She was. Michael
Palin, right?
Yep.
And we never did find out what the problem was. The issue, the problem that he has. But I'm sure it's probably still bothering Jonathan.
100%.
But yeah, so, and it's interesting that you'll probably hear all kinds of stuff about her if you're listening on the news. She apparently was not an actress by training. Robert Altman, who did Nashville, was a bit of a maverick director. He would just kind of cast people who he had a good feeling about.
Yeah.
And he met her at a dinner party that she and her husband were hosting, and that's how she ended up in the thing. And famously, she there was a lot of controversy over her role in The Shining because she was Kubrick really put her through the ringer.
Yeah.
In terms of the horror and stuff like that. And she explained on an interview show recently that it wasn't so much that it was a abusive or horrible experience. It was that it took a year to film.
Yeah.
And she says, imagine having to cry and be in that emotional state for a year.
Yeah.
That's what the trouble was, right?
Well, and he was apparently just the most exacting director. He knew exactly what he wanted and would just push and push and push and push.
Yeah. Thousands of retakes and stuff like that. And apparently the scene where Jack Nicholson comes through the door with an axe, the famous scene, the Here's Johnny scene, they didn't tell her that he was going to come through the door with an axe. So her reaction in that clip is actually real.
Yeah.
She was actually terrified.
I have an unfortunate hot take given obviously her demise. I don't want to spit on her grave, but I think she's the worst part of that movie by a distance. She's truly
not alone. A lot of people
truly not a good actress. I never really found her in anything, and I've probably seen her in half a dozen films. I never found her to be a particularly she's definitely and she was attractive. She had a very distinctive look, but she just was not a good performer. I found her scenes in The Shining, whether it's her interacting, and that's the thing, the painful part is Jack Nicholson is he's an all-timer, right? Like, he's one of the greatest actors who's ever lived. Putting him opposite her was just like a punching bag. Like, he's so far out of her class. And I think that really hurt. But even when she's acting opposite that little kid, she's still not great. It's tough. It's really tough. Again, I'm glad that she found her niche, and obviously good on her for having a career, but that was not my favorite performance I've ever seen, unfortunately.
Don't forget Olive Oil in Popeye. The underrated Popeye.
Yeah. That's an Altman movie too.
It's an interesting idea. Yep. Really weird execution. Not sure you can find another person who fits that role.
That is such a strange movie.
I don't think I've watched that more than once. It was so strange.
It's very strange. Robin Williams and Shelley Duvall, it's a heck of a thing. But go back and watch it. It's one of the most incredible sets I've ever seen. They built like basically an entire town to film this movie in on the water, and then basically abandoned it after they were done. It's fascinating, absolutely fascinating about the set story.
Yeah, I used to watch Popeye when I was a kid, and my mom would buy spinach because it came in a can with Popeye on it. Cool. All right. What do you got, Jaime?
Adult Swim has come out with the official trailer for the Rick and Morty, the anime series, coming out in two flavors here with different starting days. According to the YouTube channel here, the English language version dub is going to premiere on Thursday, August 15th at midnight, and then continuing on Thursdays. The Japanese language as a subtitle or sub is going to be premiering on Saturday, starting August 17th at midnight.
Cool. Well, and it's done in an anime. Well, you've seen the trailer. Like, and I watched the trailer. Does it strike you as, even with the I guess Japanese singing? Is it anime style? Like, is it passable or? Yeah,
it certainly seems largely inspired by that. And I've seen this style done in some of the shorts that they put online. So kind of interesting to see this go through. It's kind of a. I don't know. I don't know if it's going to end up being canonical. Certainly with a multiverse, they do actually tease that, one of the multiverses had to be anime. Kind of makes sense for Rick and Morty canon, or it could just be a nice side story kind of thing. So I guess we'll
I wonder if this is kind of like is this a new season of Rick and Morty? Like, is it time and all that stuff? Like, when the last season was out, like a year ago, I think, right?
Yeah, about that. Yeah.
Yeah, really unclear. I'm not even sure we'll get that answer by watching this series. We might have to see the next season of the regular Rick and Morty show to see if they mention anything at all that happens in the series. Because they did mention in the Rick and Morty series, they did mention taking out the Space Jam versions of Rick and Morty, who are canonically exist, and they were quote unquote happy to die or something. They wanted to be taken out. They were so miserable, kind of thing.
Yeah, and this isn't the first time they've done different animation styles. Remember they did that weird one-off episode that was based on the like Australian anime or Australian animation. It was like, I have it. I bought it on iTunes. I can't remember what they called it, but it was extremely random. Yeah, they seem like they're fine with just sort of people playing in their sandbox. Cool.
Well, I just stumbled across this as we were looking at one of the other articles on the show here. I thought it was interesting because how do you rate television? I think it's always sort of been through Nielsen ratings and bums in seats and ticket sales and that kind of stuff. But when it comes to streaming, how do they rate it? And I just thought it was interesting that the metric they're using here is the number of billion minutes streaming of a show, right? So, and they obviously the highlight was The Boys and the House of the Dragon, but like Bridgerton obviously is a Netflix show has 3.47 billion minutes viewed. In third place is The Boys with 1.19 billion minutes. Bluey, surprisingly, which I haven't seen yet. Over $1 million hits there. And what else is in here? Bob's Burgers is in ninth place with that many minutes. And is there anything else? Oh, the Acolyte here with 370 million minutes viewed. So interesting to say. I guess the new metric is minutes, number of minutes viewed, right? Or streamed.
It gets weird because the Acolyte has like really short episodes. They're around half an hour, plus or minus a few minutes. So like if I had, The Boys season 5, every episode is 3 hours. You're still going to make 8 episodes in 3 hours. It's like, okay, that's like the opposite of Hold My Beer. I've got to come up with something for that one. The anti Hold My Beer. And so it raises minutes. Like Bridgerton, each of those episodes is about an hour. The Boys are about an hour. Sweet Tooth.
Well, Bridgerton's been on for longer, though, isn't it? Isn't it like 3 or 4 seasons?
That definitely helps. And so, I mean, just the replayability for the kiddos of Bluey, which I'm going to imagine those are like 20-minute episodes, for like little half-hour shows if they were displayed on cable. So it gets kind of interesting there.
Yeah, but the story here, the lead of the story here is that 6 of these shows cracked 1 billion minutes viewed, right? So, and it's interesting because like podcast statistics, for instance, are like websites, right? Like somebody looks at your show or even clicks on it, counts as listening to the whole show. When in fact, I know that people don't listen. Those of you who are still listening to the show, thanks for hanging in with us. But people don't listen to the whole show. They listen to it for a little while, and then life gets in the way, or they get bored, or they see something shiny, or they hear Mike with the outro coming on, and they leave and never hear the after show, for example, right? Or some people skip past Mike and jump to the after show using the chapter markings, right? So I kind of wonder if is this actual minutes count? Like, does it, like, if I start watching a show and then stop watching, do they count the 10 minutes that I watched it? I would think they do, right? Look at that. Young Sheldon is almost as much as House of the Dragon.
Yeah, so despite me sort of joking that the 3-hour episodes can kind of boost your numbers, the other thing that boosts your numbers is people just being flat out excited to watch your stuff. I mean, Bob's Burgers, again, only like 20-minute episodes. Ranks really high because it's very popular. It's not like Bluey probably gets the same episodes rewatched time and time again by the kids who just really love the show. Bob's Burgers, I'm sure there are some fans that do watch them multiple times in a week, but probably not. You're probably not watching the same episode 3 times a week. You probably are maybe going back to the back catalog or something, but
there's a lot of Bob's Burgers to watch. I mean, and it is still, I think it's in heavy rotation on some of the cable channels here as well, right? So
yeah.
All right, well, we reached the main part of the show where we talk about a few things. We're still stuck on the Star Wars universe, and we're going to be talking about the Acolyte Season 1, Episode 7. I think we got one more after this to go, right?
That's right. Penultimate episode this week.
Yeah, this was called Choice. And yeah, so what do you guys got for elevator pitches? I'll go.
Go for it.
There's 3 sides to every story.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. I went with a title and subtitle, a series of unfortunate events, the cover-up is worse than the crime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I went with the simple, the truth will rarely set you free. This, I'm surprised by this week's episode. I knew that we were going to get the other perspective or another perspective on the events on Brendock. I'm genuinely surprised that they spent like 40 minutes plus on it. It felt a little painstaking. I guess they wanted to give it equal value to the initial episode we got from, I'm guessing that one was more Osha's perspective. This one is more Saul's perspective, I guess.
Yeah, kind of split, kind of explains Saul's and May's perspective, right?
But there was clearly like an omniscience to this one too, because there were certainly moments that Saul couldn't have been privy to, and so yeah, it felt a little, in the moment where it was particularly interesting was when in the initial showing, it looks like May deliberately started the fire to try and kill her sister. Here, it's played as much more of an accident, and the only 2 people who were there were the twins. So either this is a combination of May's perspective and Soul's perspective, or this is how May has put it all together in her head, or this is just the omniscient. This is really what happened, as Tim said. This is the third this is the
version,
theoretical truth of it.
Yeah, it was interesting. It was interesting to see how, like a lot of the points that you raised during the earlier shows, like why did May come back with such a wanting to quote unquote kill her sister if she left.
It just didn't add up. So,
but we do see that the second mother took her aside and got her all fired up and then sent her back in, right?
Yeah, I'm going to take a couple victory laps on my speculation from a few episodes back, because that was sort of, we were talking about like how those kinds of things could have happened, and I thought maybe Mother Coral had been, because she definitely seemed like she was much more aggressive than Anastasia, and in here we definitely saw that, where she's like, you're like, she's firing her up, she's like the coach, get in there and fight him hard, get in there. She basically revs her up, and then we also see her. This episode was very much about, we talked about in a episode, 4 episodes ago, we talked about how maybe someone was controlling one of the Jedi, and that's how the witches all ended up dying. I thought it was going to be a little more of a sort of mass slaughter situation. I'm still not sure I understand what happened. Basically, like, we see Indara come flying in when Kelnaka's been possessed, and Kelnaka beats the tar out of Saul and what was that, the other one's name? No, not Yord. It's what was the other?
Torben.
Yeah. So Kelnaka gets taken over by the witches. They're all chanting, and then Indara flies in and basically tackles Kelnaka and uses the Force to free Kelnaka's mind. And then all the witches just die? Question mark.
Yeah, I thought it was some sort of heavy, like they were kind of linking their minds together, because I think they were talking about this. They were looking for, what do they call it? Not a convergence, but a vergence, I guess.
Force. Yeah, vergence in the Force.
Which is what they were looking for, and they were thinking that these witches had sort of, and you were right about the Immaculate Conception, because apparently that's kind of how the two girls were made, right? And that was the sort of, they didn't quite come out right out and say it, but that's pretty much what they implied, right?
Yep.
And that the their mother had made them, sort of thing, right?
Yep.
Using the sort of dark side of the Force, which is what Darth, what's his face?
Plagueis.
Plagueis. Yeah, was trying to do, and that's what Palpatine was trying to get at in the later movies.
Yep.
But the later early movies, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I heard a funny joke the other day. Like, how come Star Wars goes 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, and Yoda answers because scheduling did I?
Yes, yeah. Scheduling, in charge of scheduling was I. Yeah.
Anyway, but yeah, and then the accidental, on purpose killing of spoiler of the mother.
Yeah, Anastasia.
By Soul. I mean, and then I just don't get it. Like, the political cover up from Indara. Like, this is the story. We're going to tell the truth, and then she tells a bold-faced lie.
Yeah, and
everybody kind of goes, "Oh, okay, yeah, we'll go along with that." Like, that doesn't fit with the Jedi for me,
Well, and it seems a little weird too. Even the whole, if you put all the pieces together through 7 episodes now. So Torben was so guilty about this that he went into seclusion for a decade and did not speak, and then when he did wake up, he willingly drank poison and killed himself because of how guilty he felt about what he did. And what he did was, impulsively he wanted to go home and participated in a cover. Like, it doesn't seem like the punishment fits the crime. I don't know, this is just it all seems very weird and, I don't know, dramatic, overly dramatic. But I think the part that we talked about a few episodes ago too was that, Mother Coral, we were trying to figure out, this was back when we weren't 100% sure. We were pretty sure we knew that the stranger was the apothecary, I can't remember what his alias was, Quirrell, was it something like that? We were pretty sure that was who that was. the Manny Jacinto character, but we were like, well, it could be that there's someone else. And Mother Coral, in both the original shot and in this episode we watched this week, she's not in that body, a pile of dead bodies. And we saw her sort of evaporate into smoke, which is something we've seen the Night Sisters do in the Clone Wars cartoons.
She died because when she... no, sorry, which one's Coral?
Anastasia died, but Coral is the one who is who has those sort of maul head spikes. She isn't around. I think she's the master. I still think that'll be proven next week. I think she's the Stranger's master, or she's the Sith and he's the Ren. I still think that I think she's out there. I don't think she's dead. This all seems, because how else would he have learned about all this? Because if he knows the truth, how did he learn it all? The only way he could have learned it is somebody survived. Chimera, that's what it was. I knew it had a Q in it, but I couldn't place it. Yeah, I still think that there's more there that'll come out in this final episode, because I think what we're supposed to infer is that what we saw this week, even though there was no framing device on it, I think this is more supposed to be what Soul tells May, right? And we now know what his guilt is through this whole thing, which was he essentially, at that one point, he doesn't have enough strength in the Force to save both girls, right? He has to make a choice. He has to make a choice between May and Osha, because he can't use the Force to save them both. And in the end, he theoretically lets May die, although we find out that she doesn't. We still don't know how, but she doesn't die. And then he ends up saving Osha. So not only did he get all these witches theoretically killed, but he also pretty much had a hand in killing May. Sophie's choices.
May killing May?
Well, he couldn't save her, right? I mean, he didn't kill her, but he...
Oh, when she fell, you mean? When she fell.
He's basically using two hands, and he's holding up both sides of the bridge that's broken. And then he makes the call, I only have enough strength to keep one of these things up, or they're both going to die. So he lets May theoretically fall into the chasm, essentially, from his perspective, causing her death, right? And then saves Osha. So he's been living for these last 16 years with the knowledge that he basically had to let May die.
Well, that, and he accidentally on purpose killed
Anastasia,
the mother.
Yeah.
Anastasia, yeah.
Yeah. Pew, pew, pew? Is there any question on the pew, pew, pew?
Yeah, I put down Kilnaka Combat with a K.
Yeah. Yeah. That was, I mean, we've always kind of wondered, and we knew in this series we were getting a Wookiee Jedi, but to see a, enraged, ballistic Wookiee, and I almost feel like it was restrained. Like, I feel like if a Wookiee, and this is supposed to be theoretically a Wookiee in its prime, lightsaber, full Wookiee strength, like when he's holding Torben up against the wall, and that's when his face gets all messed up, shouldn't his head have just gone kersploosh?
Well, yeah, I thought they were supposed to pull arms out of a socket, so it's according to Han Solo, right?
Yeah, like my impression of Wookiee strength, as we've seen it all the years, is that they are tremendously powerful beings. And I almost felt like, as cool as it was to see Kilnaka going toe to toe, and of course the idea is that Soul is a Jedi Knight and therefore has, power in the Force, and there was two of them versus one and whatever. But at the same time, I'm thinking Kilnaka should have just turned them into a mist on the wall. Is this what you wanted to see in a Wookiee fight? Wookiee lightsaber fight, Jaime?
I mean, I thought it was pretty dang cool that he's got big jumps. He's grabbing people and tossing them, choking them, doing kind of things that are he's turning the lightsaber into like a beating stick. It's not really a stabbing thing, so it is a bludgeon.
Yeah, and it's a huge lightsaber too, because obviously it's proportional. So it's when you see it, it's for anyone else that would be like a three-hander.
Well, didn't Jackie have it
at one point, she picks it up. It should have been like holding onto a log or something.
No, it was a good little battle there. But you're right, disproportionate.
Yeah, I feel like there should have either been more evidence that Soul and Torben were strong in the Force and were restraining Kilnaka somehow, or maybe we're supposed to infer that Kilnaka, in spite of the savagery that we saw, was holding back. But I just feel like, especially it's that one scene where he's holding Torben's head against the wall, and I'm like, that feels like it should just give out pretty fast. But all right, onto our Easter eggs. I picked a couple things out that I thought were worth flagging. So at one point when they first get to the structure where the witches are staying and they're trying to break in, Indara says, slice the door. slicing in this case is something that Star Trek video game fans will know. Slicing is the sort of Star Wars term for hacking. Slicing is something that's come up in the Star Wars video games over the years. They have Jedis. So essentially, that's something they've added in the lexicon over the past number of years. But slicing is essentially hacking. But I thought it's probably not the best way to use it here because you've got 4 characters with lightsabers. So when they say she says Kanaka sliced the door, I think we're supposed to infer like slice the door with your lightsaber. But it's, in this case, what Kanaka does is open up the control panel and hacks in. So thought that was worth...
What Qui-Gon Jinn does in Phantom Menace, where he puts his sword into the door and starts carving.
Yeah,
right?
that's a different kind of slicing. But yeah, and in this case, what she meant was hacking. I just think it was poorly phrased in this case. Like, I like that they used the term, but it almost feels like people would be confused. Like, you just told 3 people with their lightsabers to... Yeah, so... the other thing they referenced in this I thought was really interesting. So the hyperspace disaster. So they were talking about it at the beginning of the episode. So they're probing around. They're trying to find this vergence. And they're like, well, this is weird because there's life on this planet. And there wasn't supposed to be life on this planet. And they reference the great hyperspace disaster. So that's something that's come up in the High Republic comic books. As a matter of fact, it was one of the first things that came out in one of the very first novels from the High Republic, written by Charles Soule, who is also a comic book writer, called Light of the Jedi. Essentially what happens is there's this massive transport ship inside hyperspace, and I'll throw the link into Wikipedia so that you can read along and see all the details. But essentially this vehicle is traveling through hyperspace. It is attacked by what we will eventually come to know as the big bad of the early High Republic era, and the ship fragments and basically breaks apart while traveling through hyperspace. And what happens is fragments of the ship basically shoot out all across the galaxy in random places and cause a hell of a lot of damage. And in some places it's, dramatic. It impacts on things. In some places it knocks things out of their normal orbits. So it does all kinds of interesting stuff. And it adds a new sort of a wrinkle into how this all comes about. So the reason why that's relevant when we're talking about Brendok is Brendok was supposed to be an uninhabited world. There wasn't supposed to be trees. There weren't supposed to be people to be able to live there. There aren't supposed to be these little critters around. So something happened, and they think that it's tied to the Great Hyperspace Disaster. So somehow in that, either something flew by the planet or impacted the planet that shifted its orbit, and now it is a habitable planet. So that was pretty interesting way to sort of tie that all together for fans of the whole High Republic books/comics arc. And I wonder if that will come up again, because that is a sort of an establishing part of the canon for the High Republic. So that's kind of neat. The other thing that I just think is worth mentioning is the vergences that you mentioned, Tim. So just to give you a sense of what a vergence is. So Anakin is also a vergence. The cave on Dagobah, where Luke goes in and he fights the sort of ghost version of himself, is also a vergence. Basically, a vergence is any place where there is a strong accumulation of force power. Think of them as ley lines on Earth, right? The idea that there are these basically intersecting points, in this case, in the galaxy, where the concentration of the force is strong enough where you can have these, what can basically, it can help you to do things in the force that you otherwise couldn't do. There's actually there's a dark side vergence under the temple on Coruscant. That's why the temple's there. That's established in some of the other storytelling. So the idea is that there is an establishment of these vergences, and sometimes they are benign vergences and sometimes they are dark side vergences. And so it's possible that there was a vergence on Brendok. That's how they were able to create the twins the way they were, and that's why this is sort of relevant. But it's kind of interesting because it could mean that there are more vergences out there, and they can sort of tie that into more narratives going forward. The idea that there are these super cells of midichlorian / force activity in there. I also just wanted to call out that they did at one point reference midichlorians without saying midichlorians. They said M count in this one, but they didn't say midichlorians again, which was very funny.
Yeah. Well, it said M count a couple of times in the show in the past, right?
But they have
not the show, but I mean other Star Wars.
They steadfastly will not say midichlorians, which is hilarious. Did you guys spot any other Easter eggy things? This was, again, it was a bit of a, we kind of covered a lot of this stuff in the first look back on Brendock.
I don't think I found any more. I think you got the ones that I had, Virgins of the Force, like Anakin, M count, creating life.
Yeah, and it kind of ties together. Like it really is. It's funny because we were kind of joking about the Ahsoka, Mandalorian, Boba Fett intertwined universe and how it's been kind of all tied, and I guess the Bad Batch all tied into this sort of like trying to justify / establish cause for the Palpatine returns in whatever the hell that movie's called, Rise of Skywalker. That seemed like what they were kind of doing here. Here, they're kind of like almost laying the precedence to that with the you can manipulate the Force to create special circumstances, and that's how we get dyads, and we end up with Anakins, and we end up with all these things. So it's almost like they're kind of reinforcing even more backstory too. So it's kind of funny. Quotes. The callback. This could have also been an Easter egg. It is unwise to insult a Wookiee's cooking. It is unwise to insult a Wookiee. Do not confuse what Osha wants with what you want, from Indara to Sol. That was a pretty damning line. And the most damning one was from Anasea. Someday those noble intentions you have will destroy every Jedi in the galaxy. She's right. She's 100% right. She's 150 years ahead of her time.
Or most of them anyway.
Yeah. And the big question. So this was the penultimate episode. One more episode to go. What in your minds is a satisfying ending for this? What is it satisfying if it ends with a bow, or is it satisfying if it ends with we're going to do more seasons? Is it satisfying if one of the twins, both of the twins, if they have to have a conflict? Does Sol live? Does the stranger live? Like, what do you want to see? And in one last, frankly, again, I'm surprised they did the whole thing of this episode as a flashback, because now it's a little bit into hold my beer category here.
Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of like you need to get do the Canadian thing and have a committee do an investigation and spend 18 months and come up with a big report, and then nothing happens from it. Yeah, I don't know. The whole cover up thing just kind of it puts a bad taste or bad like a bad spin on the whole Jedi ideal, right? So especially since this was like in their formative years, right? So
yeah, I wonder if we're going to see. There's no way Sol can get back to the council with this, right? Like, there's just no way that's going to work out. So
yeah, I mean, he should come clean, right, as it were, right?
Yeah, but we know he can't, because we've already established that years in the future, by the time we get to Phantom Menace, they don't know of quote unquote the rise of the Sith unless he says there's this dark Force user and doesn't call him a Sith, but Chimera / the Stranger deliberately said, you might call me a Sith, to raise that specter. So there's no way he could get back to the council with this information. So either he dies or something else happens. How about you?
Yeah, what's the whip lady, Venestra or whatever her name is?
Yeah, Master Venestra.
Yeah, she's got to catch up with this story too, right?
Mm-hmm. You think they can squeeze all this in, Jaime?
I think it's going to be like an hour, 15-minute episode. Like, they've been doing sort of weird chunks. I would be incredibly shocked if this is a half-hour episode. I think it's got to be at least 50 minutes, and I'm thinking they might make it an hour 15 just to resolve a bunch of this stuff. I mean, y'all are right. Like, there ain't much time left, and I don't think this is going to get a season 2.
Yeah, I mean, I saw an interview with Leslie Headland, the showrunner and the show creator, and she said, we were focused on telling a story. I think there will be places they could do a season 2, but I think her goal was like with Russian Doll, which she also co-wrote and show ran. I think the idea is to tell a satisfying story from beginning to end, and if there's a place you could go after that, cool. But yeah, I don't know. It seems like there's a lot of moving parts to try and land well. We're invested in the twins, we're invested in Sol, we're invested in what's going on with Venestra and the stranger, and whether there's a possible tie there. I don't know. It's a lot of stuff to try and wrap up in as you say, 30-40 minutes. So yeah, we shall see. To be continued. Included.
To the teachers, assistants, and support staff who see potential in every child, Grand Canyon University recognizes you. We created the National Center for Teacher Preparation at GCU, along with a generous scholarship, so you can become a licensed teacher with paid benefits. Over 100 GCU alumni have been recognized award recipients, including Superintendent, Administrator, and Teacher of the Year. Find your purpose at Grand Canyon University. Private, Christian, affordable. Visit gcu.edu/parapro.
House of the Dragon, Season 2, Episode 4, Dance of the Dragons. We're finally there.
Well, the dragons fighting it out, eh? Yeah.
Well, this was the promise of the show, right? The promise of the show was, hey, what if these awesome warriors who flew on dragons fought each other? Just 14 episodes later, you'll get to see it.
Yeah. And it's kind of like we two of the main key characters got lost in this one, and unless one gets plucked from the sea again, but no, she landed on the castle, right? So
yeah, well, I don't think Aegon is dead, because we see Aemond at the end of the episode pull his sword out and then put his sword away, and then we see the king lying there. I think if he was dead, we wouldn't have seen the specter of Aemond maybe about to finish him off if he wasn't caught. I don't think Aegon is dead, but Rhaenys, who was kind of the voice of reason through the first season and a half, being the first one to go into battle on a dragon and the first one to die in pretty spectacular fashion is a pretty huge development.
Well, how many dragons do we have? Like Rhaenyra has one.
I think there's that could fight that aren't like babies. I think there's about 15 to 20.
Right,
but some of them are
Daemon has one, Rhaenyra has one.
Yep, Jace has one. Bela has one.
But Bela's is younger though, isn't it?
Nope. She has she was the one who was chasing in last week's episode was chasing Kristen Cole into the.
Oh right, yeah.
Right. So yeah, we have a bunch that could be in play, and then there are a few unclaimed ones. So we saw Sea Smoke flying around Driftmark in I think episode 2 or 1. So that was Leonor's. That was Rhaenyra's ex-husband, late husband, the one who was they faked his death and he went off to live with his boyfriend in the other countries. His dragon is theoretically still there, but doesn't have a rider. And there are a few other dragons that just don't have riders, and that's I think why we're getting so many of these little tastes of other characters. We saw the guy who was bragging that he was Daemon and Viserys's illegitimate brother last week. We saw Corlys and Rhaenyra Rhaenys had this moment in this episode where she pretty much said Adam and Alan, the two men who are working in Hull, which is on Driftmark, are Corlys's sons. So that means they have Targaryen blood, which means they could become dragon riders. So I think what they're doing is, while we lose characters like Rhaenys, I think we're going to start to see more other characters come in and start flying around on dragons. So I think the promise of this show is finally starting to sort of turn with this episode, where it's kind of been build up and build up and build up and will they and won't they, and now we're finally in open warfare. So I think the rest of this season and a good chunk of next season will be the war, wherein, essentially they've gone nuclear now, right? They've pulled out the big guns. Dragons are fighting dragons. Vagar, the biggest dragon in the world, biggest living dragon in the world, is in play and just bit the head off of Meleys. So I think we're really going to start see the S hit the fan right now, because that means that all of a sudden everyone's dragons are going to have to get in the game, and so now we're going to see 2-on-1 dragon fights and 5-on-5 dragon fights, and and Vagar is, when you're talking about it's basically, it's like, we've got these F-16 missiles launching off of our planes, and he's like, cool, I got a flying aircraft carrier. So it really is an interesting match to see how, it's not the quantity of your dragons so much as the quality of your dragons too. So it's really interesting. It's an interesting point to get to. I'm excited that we're finally here at like the actual conflict as opposed to the preamble. Jaime, what grabbed you on this one? It wasn't just a pew 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 episode. There was actually a bunch of stuff that happened beforehand too.
Yeah. There's There's quite a bit. So my elevator pitch tries to wrap it all together in a cheeky way. I put Sir Kristen Cole plots a scheme for hot dragon on dragon action, but will Plan B save him from embarrassment, or will he end with egg on his face?
Was the Plan B referring to the drink that Allison got midway through the episode?
And that was also my my Easter egg hunt, the special tea that has come up before in Game of Thrones.
Apparently, he's a very fertile dude.
Yes, yeah. Does that mean that she'll be a barmaid in the next episode?
Yeah, really. Well, I think we're supposed to infer that she puts her hand on her stomach before she drinks it. So I think we're supposed to infer that she is, in fact, actually pregnant, which I don't think Rhaenyra necessarily was. But then we also see her later on with like hot rocks on her stomach. I think we're supposed to get the idea that she had a miscarriage or a sort of... Well, no, I think the idea is that she drank that stuff and it caused her to have a miscarriage. Because at that point, she's basically putting a hot pack on herself. So, yeah.
Oh, so you think Alicent's no longer pregnant?
I don't think she is. I think she's supposed to be pregnant when she first drinks the tea. I think she drinks the tea, she has a miscarriage, and that's why she's got the hot rocks on her belly later on. But of course, she leaves the glass on the table and then invites the biggest gossip in the entire of, King's Landing to come and hang out with her. So he now knows that she's had to take the abortion tea. So yeah.
And do we but isn't this, I hate to say it, but this to me sounds like, women who practice birth control by the phases of the moon. You know what they call them?
Pregnant? Moms. Yeah, exactly. Well, and it's, again, it ties into this sort of overarching part of this show too, right? The hypocrisy of the Greens, where she judged Rhaenyra so much for, how she perceived she behaved and everything else. And yet she just did the exact same thing with the exact same person. So, yeah, I think it's the hypocrisy of the whole thing that is supposed to be, just like we saw last week when Rhaenyra is like, no, it's not too late. We can stop this. And Alicent's like, no, it's too late. Like, yeah. So Alicent is by no means in any of this innocent. And not to mention the fact that she essentially goads her idiot son, the king, into drunkenly getting on board Sunfire, riding into a battle he was not prepared for, and getting scorched and dropped like 1,000 feet under the ground.
Did she do that to him? I thought she was trying to get him not to go.
She says to him, why don't you just do what you're good for? Nothing. Like, wow, that is not a good mom line.
Yeah.
We all have issues with our moms from time to time, but that's a pretty awful thing to hear from your mother. But yeah, I mean, like I say, I think this is a real turning point in the show, and it's a turning point in the storyline, because the fact that Rhaenys is dead, obviously Corlys is going to be infuriated, and that could not go well because he's obviously a very prideful man. We've seen that throughout the first couple seasons, and on top of that, obviously Rhaenyra sent her to her death essentially. And on top of that, the king, whether he's dead or not, I don't think he is, but he's clearly not going to be in great shape. So what that means for who runs the kingdom? That's the question, right? Even if Aegon is just laid up, who runs the kingdom? Is it the Hand? That would be Kristen. Is it the Dowager Queen? That's Alicent. Is it Aemond, who is probably the most qualified, but also clearly a little insane and not above a little fratricide?
Yeah, this is a wild one because it does cover a lot of the inside of the house's issues, the inter-house issues, the broader battle for the Dance of Dragons that you mentioned. For example, right? The two quotes that I have are all kind of more internal to one side. They're not one side speaking to the other, right? I have Daemon to Lord Tully's grandson saying, perhaps you could put a pillow in his face and speed along your inheritance. You're sickly.
Good on that actor who plays the response of just looking horrified.
And something softer, but is a nice foreshadowing of the bad decision that Aegon makes is Aegon to Alicent saying, "I removed them, I didn't burn them," referring to Viserys's books.
Yeah.
So he had enough sense to not burn them, but not quite enough sense to keep them there and go through them. And Allison's quote of like, I didn't write it down, is basically, your job is to sit there and look pretty.
Yep.
Okay?
Yep.
You do not contribute. You contribute by not dying.
Yep. Yeah, I think this is, like I say, I think this is a bit of a turning point episode. I think it'll be interesting to see. And this is the halfway mark. We're only getting 8 episodes. So they only did 8 episodes. I think, I don't know if that was a budget issue or if that was because this was actually being filmed in Europe during the writers and actors strike. But because it's a European production, they were able to continue working on it. I don't know. Last season was 10 episodes. This is only 8. So this is the halfway point of this season too. So it'll be interesting to see where they decide to take us from here. And this is a civil war, and we know from the very beginning of this what the outcome is. We know that what happens is this is a civil war between the Targaryen families that very seriously weakens the Targaryen dynasty and eventually leads to a much less powerful House of the Dragon. Like, I would say maybe don't fall in love with a lot of characters, because I think in the end of this, many will die. You just can't have dragon fights at 750 feet in the air, and sieges on castles and not have people die along the way. The other thing we didn't mention is Daemon, the whole Daemon storyline. Daemon at Harrenhal clearly losing his marbles, being haunted.
Yeah.
Alice Rivers, who's the witch, the barn owl in human form. She's a fun, interesting character, but she seems what's the phrase? Nuttier than squirrel poo? Yeah, I don't know. He's having these hallucinations. He saw young Rhaenyra. He saw his former wife, Lena, at one point in the room with him. He clearly space gapped a little bit of time when he drank some of what was probably weirwood leaves crushed up. So yeah, interesting stuff happening, and a lot of new characters, a lot of stuff sort of percolating all over the place.
Yeah, the the best pew 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 I think is the Sunfire Meleys, the goat Vagar one, and showing the just differences, right? Like Meleys is not only a bigger dragon than Sunfire, but the rider is much more skilled. Right. Yeah. Rhaenys is like, okay, cool. You tried to use fire. Dragons seem to be largely invulnerable to the fire, but the rider is not. So tip of the hat, you tried. Now I'm going to do some cooler stuff and put you in danger. And your dragon's getting beat up until the goat comes and really tries to take them both out. Right. And it's like, whoops, my big dragon killed them both. How unfortunate. Seemed to be the approach there.
Here's my question to the two of you. Do you think that Aemond, when he saw his brother, when he saw Aegon flying in on Sunfire, do you think that he was like, hey, remember last week when you made fun of me in the brothel and all the times you made fun of me with the pink dread and all that stuff? Do you think that in the moment he was like, hey, I'm going to take my brother out? Or do you think he was like, you're an idiot and you're in my way and I don't care if you die? Do you think it was I want you to die, or I don't care if you die?
In the dragon fight?
Yeah, he clearly he says Dracarys. He wants to unleash a blast of flame, and he is either doing one of two things. He's either doesn't care if Aegon gets hurt or killed, or he's deliberately trying to hurt and kill him, as well as Meleys and Rhaenys. Do you think he was deliberately trying to kill him?
I think he doesn't care, because I'm sure if he was trying to kill him, he probably could. So,
how about you?
Yeah. Yeah, it felt like doesn't care and does it in a way that it's like, certainly there are going to be people who said you killed the king no matter what. And there's going to be some people who are like, there's some doubt there. It's 3 dragons bashing into each other. Maybe something bad just happened. Like he can live through the very reckless way of handling it versus telling his dragon to come chomp on the back end of the other dragon, which would be a little bit more safe and dislodge them from Sunfire.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I love the ambiguity of it. I think that's what makes Aemon such a fascinating character. He's clearly the opposite side of the coin, and they keep using that coin to sort of show it. But he's the opposite side of the coin to Daemon, right? He's basically Daemon's counterpart. He's smart, skilled, and extremely dangerous, and you do not know one way or the other whether he's going to do something the right way, the wrong way, or just his own completely dangerous way. But yeah, I love the ambiguity of you are sort of left to try and interpret. Like, was he like, hey, here's my mom? I mean, he said in season 1, near the end of season 1, he said, I should be the king. Aegon's not worthy. I am the one who studied. Like, we saw him take him to school in this episode, right? And he starts speaking High Valyrian in the chamber. He starts speaking it in the small council, and he's just doing laps around his brother. And his brother's like, I go to war then? Like, he's like, clearly Aegon's not nearly the educated, historical practiced person that his brother is. And I think Aemond is like, I should be the freaking king.
Yeah. Well, isn't he second in line, though, for the throne sort of thing?
In theory, not, because Aegon does have his own children. Now, they are children, so in theory, they would become, if he was dead, they would become the next in line, and somebody like Alicent or Kristen or Aemond could become essentially the
regent.
Regent, that's right. King Regent. Mm-hmm. So you would basically rule until that child came of age. But that would only take place if Aegon died, because if Aegon lives but is incapacitated, then theoretically any of them could become the regent, because you only become the king as a child if your parents die. So that's going to be, I think, the really interesting part of next week's episode is if there's a power vacuum, if Aegon is either dead or if he's badly hurt, which one way or the other, he's one of those two things. There's no way he's just going to be like, I'm fine. Like, no way. Who's going to be in charge? Who's leading the Greens now? Somebody get a call into the High Towers. We need Otto Hightower back.
Yeah. They're kind of left, if he's alive, like doing things in his name. Like he was already, sort of self-goaded himself into this because he felt useless. Like everybody was doing plots around him and not really involving him, much less, not even informing him, much less involving him. And so I wonder if it just sort of cuts the middleman out, where they just weekend at Bernie's this guy and prop him up there.
Here's what the king said. You just didn't hear it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I just got to get real close to hear his whispers. You can't hear it.
Yeah.
And speaking of like whispers and being like a dang ninja, like my big question is, does Vhagar have a natural cloak like the Jem'Hadar? It's like it just kind of swoops out of nowhere.
Yeah,
this huge
for
dragon
something that's so massive, right?
Yeah.
But I think that's supposed to be because Vhagar is not just the biggest, but the oldest and most experienced dragon in the realm. Theoretically, this big girl knows how to fight. She's supposed to have been, through the wars over the years. So again, it's the difference between like fighting in a biplane and fighting in a Harrier jet. Like, she knows how to play these games. Like, we see that even when when she's fighting, when she was chasing Luke around in the end of season 1, but she plays to keep. She's like, when she attacks Meleys, she grabs Meleys by the throat and bites her freaking head off. Like, she is in it to win it. So yeah, right. It's a pretty big discrepancy, and I wonder. I'm sure. Like, I think the outcome of this is that there were supposed to be a lot less dragons by the end of this fight between the two sides. I wonder if Vhagar lives through all this, and if so, I can't wait to see how they take something like that out, because she just looks like she's the ace in all these decks, right? Yeah.
And it was really rough. Like, a lot of people online had the same sort of feeling I did of like, man, we've been waiting for this to happen. The Dance of Dragons, like, oh, it's kind of like watching a dog fight at a kennel. Like, I feel less good about this. This seems really bad.
Well, and I loved the way that they did the dragon fight. I was really curious. Like, I wasn't sure if it was going to be them swooping around on each other, just sort of blazing fire at each other. But I loved, especially the part with Meleys and Sunfire, when they were kind of fighting like eagles, like with the talons out, sort of scratching at each other while they were flying. Like, I thought that was really interesting. Like, I must admit, I never really thought about how do dragons fight one another. We've only ever seen in Game of Thrones, we've seen them like blow up things on the ground. We've never seen them fight one another. And even, again, we saw that bit at the end of last season. It was, again, it was a housefly versus an eagle. But this is the first time we've seen two sort of equally matched dragons kind of going at it. And it was really cool.
Yeah. That's what I was kind of wondering about the techniques, because the fire doesn't seem to be like they're perfectly invulnerable, but it doesn't seem to be a huge deal to them either. It seems to be more of a danger to the rider.
Yeah.
But, sustained fire is, one thing that might be like a way that they actually do fight each other. The clawing, the biting, these things. It was pretty cool to see. So even though it's uncomfortable, it's like, oh man, it really did feel like people's puppies getting murdered kind of thing. I was like, oh my gosh, like it didn't just feel like generic, like Jurassic Park creatures.
Yeah.
It felt more like pets fighting each other than the dinosaurs.
Well, and we saw there was both the opening scenes where we see Renice mounting Melis, and she says, something like, once more into battle, old girl. And there's a sweet moment, and even in that moment when she knows she's going to die, Melis sort of turns and looks at Renice. Like, you're right. I think it's actually a really not a bad analogy, Jaime. I think, these aren't pets. These are, beloved creatures. These aren't just this isn't strapping yourself into a plane. This is something you care about. And we even saw that with Aegon, right? Aegon comes down and sees Sunfire, and she nuzzles him, and they sort of rub noses and stuff like that. And he's hammered, but it's a sweet moment between the two of them. So yeah, I mean, obviously it's gonna strike even harder that these beings, these beautiful, beautiful creatures, so many of them are going to die during this stretch. All right. The Boys, season 4, episode 7, The Insider, the penultimate episode of this season for The Boys too.
Yeah, a bunch of big reveals in this one.
Yeah, this one felt like what you'd expect from a penultimate episode. You're kind of getting the gang back together, right? Like within the first little bit of this episode, all of the boys are all back on working together. Some of the stuff that's sort of been lingering all season between some of the people in their relationships. Frenchie comes back out of prison, has to sort of his stuff with Kimiko. We get, Butcher coming clean on what's going on inside his head. We get, Annie and Huey. We get, Mother's Milk and his, wife and his relationship with the whole thing. We get, even stuff with A-Train. It kind of all comes together and sort of sets up for one finale, and they kind of know where the plot's going now, that they're going to try and take out the president. They got the plan. So this really felt like a stage setting episode, but then it took a few interesting twists along the way.
Yeah.
Jaime, what grabbed you about this one?
I think one of the things that was interesting to me, it definitely plays for some humor and then gets sort of horrifying, is Homelander and Firecracker interrogating Webweaver, and it's played very much for humor as he's like crapping himself with his web goo from nervousness, and then you have Homelander probably knowing what he's going to do anyways, but Firecracker not really realizing how terrifying
the full extent
he is. Yeah, just casually ripping a man in half. That was pretty intense.
Yeah.
I like the whole sort of the build up with the shapeshifters, where the one woman is running away and she touches another person and then starts shedding her skin, as it were, and turning into the other person. And then you see later on Annie the woman comes to him and said, "Hey, can I take a selfie?" And turns out that's a shapeshifter, and having touched her now, she can morph into Annie, right?
Yep.
So
yeah, and that's I must admit, I'm usually good at sort of following those threads, but when we got to the end of that episode and we found out that Annie had been replaced, I was like, damn, I didn't see that coming. That was really well done. But I think it's a testament to the show that's got a lot of layers to it. You can lose track of stuff if you're not constantly vigilant, because there's so much stuff going on.
Yeah, there was the showdown in the home office, right? So sort of thing.
Yeah, that was one of the funnier fights where they're like, yeah, we're sending in these two to finally put you guys down. Now I'm like, how serious can that be? If Homelander's take care of them, Homelander is, we were just talking about Vagar. Homelander is the Vagar of this show, right? He's so far above everyone else. He could have killed the entire crew of the boys in moments, but he sends the replacement narcoleptic version of Noir, and the Deep, who's a well-established moron, to go take him out. It was just like, to take out like Butcher and Annie and the whole crew. Like, come on. That was really sad. The Deep stuff with the Deep and the octopus. I was messaging with a friend of mine about this earlier. I am still, I don't think we talked about this. Tilda Swinton is the voice of the octopus.
Yeah.
Tilda Swinton is an Oscar-winning actress. Like, I'm so blown away by how we have that. You know, this one bizarre relationship where this guy is clearly having a lot of sex with his pet octopus who lives in his closet and he's ashamed of. And then they get one of the most incredible performers of the 21st century in to do the voice. It's so weird. It's so random. It's again a testament to how awesomely weird this show is.
Yeah. I did figure out one thing though about the show. As I mentioned before, they film one of the houses on my street or down the street from me. And you often see like they'll have the big lights on the outside, and I was trying to figure out what possible like would they be using that house for? Like, is it the, you know, like what whose house is it kind of thing? And then I realized they're actually shooting the interior of that house, and it's Vicky's house. You know, the scene where Huey goes to visit her at her home.
Yep.
That's the house on Langley.
So you live next to a house that's good enough for the VP-elect of the United States?
Yeah, pretty much.
Wow.
Well, she's moving out, though, so...
Yes, that's true. It's true.
Yeah, that's cool, though. They do film a lot of shows in my neighborhood, though. I guess the interiors for various reasons, right?
Yeah, they seem to be doing a lot of the Gen V stuff out here, because obviously the campus is UTM, which is like 3 kilometers from my house. But yeah, we saw that they had the Vought gas station. One of my gas stations in my neighborhood was turned into a Vought gas station recently. So yeah,
really, that's cool.
Yeah,
I like the puppet show.
God, I was going to bring that up.
Ryan show.
The Ryan's puppet show about like narking on your family members if they was it the lady with the beard, the people who, you know, question superheroes, like see it, say it, like oof. Again, this show is scathing. It's just scathing.
Yeah, they said that the, you know, Sean Hannity, Tucker Carlson dude, he's kind of like a mishmash of both. That he, like, you know, they'd already said that he had gone on like some Tahiti vacation or something, or tropical vacation of some sort, and like, oh, he sadly died due to the the flu vaccine.
Yeah, because he got the flu vaccine. Direct result of the flu vaccine. Like, oh my God. Yeah, I love that. I still love, and we talked about this a few episodes back, I love that there was people in the States who were like, I love this show, it's my kind of show, and they were like thinking that this wasn't a satire of them. Like, dude, no, they're making huge fun of you.
The like main antagonist's name is Homelander, and he literally wears the American flag as a cape. Like, I'm not sure how much more on the nose it could have been for folks who are a little unclear on the politics of this show.
Oh, so good. They played a bunch of 1990s music for Samir, the doctor who's working on the virus. And, you know, they start out by playing, was it Butterfly? And they end with Len's Steal My Sunshine, which turns into a horror song. So this is like Stuck in the Middle with You now. That's just completely changed meaning. Stuck in the Middle with You from Reservoir Dogs, not probably what Jerry Rafferty had in mind when he wrote the song, having somebody's, if you haven't seen that movie, some brutal torture scene to that song. In here, we get a pretty crazy impromptu leg sawing.
Wait a minute, this Stuck in the Middle with You is the song that...
Oh, what did I say?
In Reservoir Dogs. Steal My Sunshine.
Oh, Steal My Sunshine is the one in this one. That's the song that was playing in this one. And Jerry.
I see. You're drawing a parallel between the two.
Yes,
okay, gotcha.
Yes. So yeah, this was Len Steal My Sunshine. So as Frenchie is frantically trying to stop the anti-soup virus from killing Kimiko, he has to pick up a saw and saw off her leg with no warning, while this song plays in the background. Again, I don't think I'll ever hear that song and think of it the same way again. That was pretty messed up. And then to go straight to the next scene where Kimiko has grown back her leg, because we've established she can basically heal from almost anything. and yet her old leg is in an ice box
with the same Doc Martens on.
Yeah, that's the part I was thought a little funny. I was like, why wouldn't they have taken her shoe off? But anyways, yeah.
Does she regrow the Doc Martens as well? Or?
I don't know. We didn't get that angle of her, which is a shame. But oh my god, the show is so very, very, very much willing to go there. It's so brazen and bloody, and I'm.
Well, did you also reveal the backstory behind Kimiko and the girls? Like why
that was really interesting.
Why she doesn't,
why
she doesn't talk, and why that one woman has a cut on her face.
Yeah, we didn't know any of that before, and that is actually pretty fundamental. I'm really curious to see if that is a sort of turning point for her. I mean, Frenchie and Kimiko's relationship has been really interesting this season. Both of them clearly dealing with so much about their pasts. I'd be wondering if we'll start to see some healing. I mean, we saw, a real moment for Mother's Milk here in this episode too, right? Where he sort of realizes, like, on one hand, I want to get out of this. It's killing me, the stress and everything else. But on the other hand, he's like, I got to see this to the end. Like, I can't just run for the hills and hope this happens. I think this is going to be interesting. And now Sage has been fired, essentially. A-Train is, in hiding off the board. Like, it sets up for a really cool finale.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. But it's kind of like, you talked about Homelander being like this guy who could just basically tear people apart, like on a whim. But it's sort of like the corporate, politicking. You surround yourself by minions, and you get the minions to do the dirty work, kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of and like, he's such a talented guy. Like, he's the reason why he's the head of the Seven is because he's probably the most powerful of them all, right? Most dangerous and most powerful, right?
Mm-hmm.
So kind of interesting dynamic that but he still has the need to have all these people who run his socials and manage the money, and he's got this woman you just mentioned who's the office manager, kind of CEO, whatever.
Yeah, well, theoretically she's the CEO, but she's also kind of not the CEO, right? She's kind of just a figurehead, and she basically gets bossed around. That's Ashley, right? Yeah. I'm. It's funny. We were just talking about, next week being the finale of The Acolyte. How are they going to squeeze everything in? Obviously, we know we're getting one last season of The Boys, so we know they don't have to wrap up everything. But I have no concerns that they're going to be able to end this in a satisfying fashion. I have no worries about this show. It always delivers. I'm never worried that they're going to leave me with something I don't want. I'm always confident that they are going to do something I don't expect and do it well.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But bittersweet.
I have a question, though. What happened to Maeve?
She died. She died last season in the either last or second last episode. She threw herself out the window to kill Soldier Boy.
I thought she faked her death. Didn't they find video of her?
Well, that's right. She wanted to live with her girlfriend, right? Like she wanted to get off the board. So she threw herself out the window. Soldier Boy died. She was listed as dead. But then I think at the end of the episode, we saw her like on a tropical island somewhere with her girlfriend.
On a boat. Yeah.
But either way, she's off the board.
Is she?
Well, who knows?
She could come back. You never know.
Hey, you pull out all the stops and you have a final season, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we haven't seen. There's so many other characters we haven't seen that come back this season. We didn't see Mallory. There's lots of characters that haven't reappeared. So yeah.
Head over to the watch list. Let's watch.
Oh yes, the watch list.
You sound like you're exhausted.
Well, here's why. So on the watch list this week, I took the advice of two evil men on our Slack channel.
Oh, why would you do that?
I know. I shouldn't have done it, and I did it anyways. So, because we got a request on our Slack channel, you are all welcome to join us there. It's a lot of fun. We do horrible things to one another and also have a lot of laughs. So, Jaime, you contributed to this nudge in this direction. I watched Morbius this week, because I got some very positive responses to the merciless skewering I gave Madam Web in our 200th episode last week, and the suggestion was you should do more of those and do terrible movies. I was like, yeah, all right, I'll for the team I will take this one. I'm gonna watch Morbius. So I watched Morbius last night in its entirety, and I'm here to tell you it's not as bad as Madam Web, but it's pretty bad. It is in the same way that we talked about Madam Web last week. It's basically formula. It seems like they basically said, tell a story, dear AI program, tell a story about what it would be like if a doctor who's got a serious illness suddenly becomes a vampire and then has to figure out how to control himself and also has to fight another guy who has the same affliction. And that's it. Just hits every single checkpoint you think you're going to hit along the way. It's every single trope. It's every single joke. It's kind of just pointless and cheesy and not ultimately very satisfying. But there was a saving grace for this movie that there wasn't in Madam Web. Madam Web sucked because the villains sucked, the characters sucked, and there just wasn't any there. Here we were spared slightly because we got Matt Smith was the bad guy in this movie. And I love Matt Smith. I loved him as the Doctor. I loved him on House of the Dragon. I've loved him in almost everything I've seen him in. And you can make fun of it because of the fact that he is really going for it. He seemed like the only person who got the message that this movie was a joke and was like, I am just going to chew on every word I get. I am going to be bigger than life. I'm going to be just as over the top of a villain as I can. Like, he is literally, he'll like punch somebody and then be like, woo! Like, he is just chewing the scenery to little tiny pieces, but in a way that's actually extremely charming. He's actually for the bad guy, very likable. Like, he's a murdering psychopath, but he's also very, very likable and made for moments where I genuinely laughed and was like, this dude is actually, I'm kind of rooting for him versus the Jared Leto titular Morbius. The best part of this movie is the fact that it has two codas, two PS scenes, stingers, if you will, in the credits, setting up potential sequels or, expanded, not quite Spider-Verse kind of stories. I was like, that is the ballsiest thing I've ever seen. I'm sure they filmed them with the notion of like, well, it's going to be the thing that just kicks off our new not Spider-Verse, but I just kept watching. I was watching these things that were supposed to be setting something else up and was like, there's no way that's going to happen. And if it does, wow. Honorable mention in the ickiness factor in the era of Me Too. So Jared Leto is my age. He's actually older than I am. He made this movie when he was 50. And the love interest in this is Aria Arjona. I'm sure I'm not saying her name right. How do you say her name here? Adria Arjona, who she was Bix in Andor. So she's an excellent actress. I like her. And she's also extremely beautiful. And she's been in a bunch of stuff that I've seen. She was in Pacific Rim Part 2. She's been in a bunch of stuff. I like her. She, when this was made, was 28 years old. He's 50. She's 28. Ew. Mm-hmm. Ew. Now, I get that this is like, again, something that a lot of people don't pay attention to. But in a world where we are getting a little more understanding of power dynamics and all these things, ew, that's not okay. He's more than 20 years older than her. He is, in theory, like, she works with and or for him in the show, in the movie. And, there's just a whole lot of wrong there. I do not think that was okay. I just wanted to call that out. I think that was the cherry on the sundae of the poop-tastic pile that this movie is. I would say not worth anyone's time. Shame on them for making it. It falls into that same bucket. And yet, if you're a Matt Smith fan, you could watch this and take something away from it enjoyable. He's delightful. So that's my review of Morbius. Feel free to jump in on our Slack channel with the horrible movie you'd like me to watch next. No, Jaime, that's not for you. What was the other one? Keen was recommending the 1980s Fantastic Four and Captain America movies. Any other terrible movies you want me to watch? I'm game. I don't mind watching a terrible movie for good content. So let me know what you want to see next.
Okay. What do you got, Jaime?
I have Clipped. miniseries that came out on FX and Hulu in the States. I haven't checked to see where it is for the international audience. Okay, I wasn't. I knew that you all normally get Hulu content there, but I wasn't sure if it was guaranteed to be there given some other oddities. This is a 6-episode miniseries with a bunch of folks you're going to like. And what is it about? If you even vaguely remember when the Los Angeles Clippers were, removed from Donald Sterling's grubby paws. This is for you. I kind of vaguely remember when that happened. I'm like, oh yeah, this dodgering old man. I guess he's not fit to own a team. All right, they took it away from him, and it's because of these racist things he said. They cover it quite well here. You've got Lawrence Fishburne as the head coach, Doc Rivers, beloved Ed O'Neill, Al Bundy, or Jay from Modern Family as Donald Sterling. You end up with some recurring folks like LeVar Burton, surprisingly, is in here and has a couple of really good scenes. So that hasn't convinced you. I'm not sure what else will. It goes down super easy. They're like half an hour to 40-minute episodes. Kind of fun.
Yeah, I've been seeing that on the Disney Plus thing. I keep flipping by it and...
Yeah, I'm glad you endorsed it because I saw it too and thought, oh, that could either be really good or really terrible. And I wasn't sure if I wanted to commit to it.
Yet, though.
No.
Yeah, no. I don't want to oversell. Like, it's not Winning Time season 1, kind of tier. It doesn't quite hit that height, but I thought it was, I don't know, apparently it's based on the ESPN 30 for 30 podcast. Sterling Affairs, something like that.
And, the documentary series thing they do, the 30 for 30, yeah, I like that.
Yeah, it was based on that, is my understanding. It's dramatized, of course, so I'm not sure how close it was, but it seemed to hit the major points you would want to hit for drama. Just seeing how these various people deal with things is just bananas to think that this sort of thing happens and happened. So I think it's worth a watch. Again, it's 6 episodes. It's pretty breezy. I don't think it'll be all episodes are available now if you haven't heard of it before.
Cool. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, I got a couple that I watched. Obviously, Blade Runner 2049. I started watching it last week and finished it off. But I also watched Beverly Hills Cop Axel F, which is the remake of the Beverly Hills Cop franchise. He's back in 90210. Eddie Murphy, yeah, it was actually a passable movie. It was actually rather interesting. So if you've been thinking about whether you should watch that one or not, it's not as it brings back all the cast. Like the 2 cops in Beverly Hills are back. I'm not going to tell what roles they are, but they're back in it. Eddie's in it, and his daughter's plays a role in it as well. So yeah,
I saw Paul Reiser's in the trailer too. It's Paul Reiser's in it.
Yeah, Paul Reiser was he in the original series?
Yeah, he was in the original movie. He was one of his coworkers in his boss. One of his coworkers in Detroit.
Detroit, yeah. Yeah, he's in it for quite a bit of the movie at the beginning, anyway. But yeah, good movie. And then the other thing, because I was sort of on a Denis Villeneuve kick, I sat down and watched Arrival again. It's probably like the 5th or 6th time I've seen it. And like I've told you before, I love a timey-wimey story, and because the telling of the Arrival is. Without giving too much away, it's about how we perceive time and when aliens come to the planet and what we learn from them from their first the first contact kind of thing. But yeah, just all I'm going to say is it's a really interesting sci-fi story about how we perceive things. So cool. That's all I'm going to say. And I will watch it again. I was hoping it was going to be in 3D, but I don't recall if it was 3D, but I remember seeing it in the theaters when it came out. But so there you go. Those are my picks. And I guess that's it for another week. So, Jonathan, if people want to get in touch with you, where would they find you?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram. It's at JPK News, or you can find me on YouTube at youtube.com/@JPK.
All right. And Jaime, if people get in touch with you, where do they find you?
I'm on Twitter. It's at @DevWithTheHair.
All right. And my name is Tim Mitra, TIMMITRA, on the Twitter machine, the fax machine, the copy machine, the Threads, Blue Sky, Mastodon. That's pretty much where I am. And so until next time, we'll see you in the future. Bye.
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 You've been listening to the Spotcast podcast. If you want to find out more about the podcast or see the episode show notes, visit the Spotcast website at spotcast.com. You can get in touch with us on the website or follow us on Twitter at Spotcast. If you have feedback or questions, send us a tweet with the hashtag AskSpotcast. If you like the show, please consider recommending us to a friend, writing a review on iTunes, or pledging any amount at patreon.com/Spotcast. You can find details on how to help us on our website, spotcast.com/sponsor us. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the future.
Is there something starting soon?
Yeah, there's a few things that are coming in this soon. And actually, we're going to find out a whole bunch of stuff because Comic-Con's coming up in 2 weeks. So we're going to get a bunch of announcements. There's supposed to be a huge Star Trek panel. So I think we're going to get dates for Lower Decks. We'll probably get dates for Section 31. And I think there's going to be a bunch of other TV show. I think they're going to announce that when Silo's coming back and a few other things are going to come out of that. So I think we'll kind of figure out what our fall is going to look like by then. But yeah, because we're going to have Time Bandits is coming. We've got what else am I forgetting about? There's like 4 or 5 things that are coming up in the next little while. Yeah, no shortage.
Yeah. Is that the San Diego Comic-Con?
Yeah.
Has it gotten back to being as big as it was, or?
It has, and actually it's become a bit of a problem because the city's just not big enough. Like the event is bigger than the city is. They had committed a while back because they were going to move the whole thing to Vegas because there's certainly no shortage of places to stay there and go there and everything else. And San Diego was like, no, this is a San Diego institution. And they basically stepped up to make it, more manageable. But I've actually been reading a few things on different sources the last little while about how they're really struggling because the hotels in San Diego are apparently just gouging the holy smokes out of people. As obviously, if there's a higher demand, you should charge more of a premium. But apparently, some of the rooms, like for like a room with a bed in it now, is like $750 a night, and
wow.
It's getting absolutely absurd for people to have to spend that much money, not even to attend the event, but just to be in the city. So they're saying like it may be time to once again reevaluate whether or not San Diego is the best place to have it. And it's a shame that obviously it's an institution, but at the same time, I've been frustrated by the fact that it's been, in the past I have thought about attending. I put my name in for the access to draws, and it's like, yeah, you can get tickets for like one of the 4 days that it's on, and but only one ticket. You can't go as your family. It's just like, forget it. What's the point? Like, why would you do that? They give preference to people who have gone before, which makes to me no sense. Like, so you can't get new people can't get in. There's a lot of problems with it, and it's become this huge industry thing now where it's so much more celebrity than it is substance. I've heard from people who are comic fans who said, like, other than the fact that there are a handful of creators who will only attend that, if you're a comic fan, it's a waste of time. You're better off going to, Jaime, Emerald City is supposed to be an amazing con. There's New York, there's Orlando, there's Dallas, there's Toronto, Vancouver. There's so many better shows that are worth going to if you're not there to go see celebrities and dress up. So
right. Yeah, but has it become like so? One of the things about WWDC is that even though like a handful of 3,000 people get in, the community still goes to the city. Do people do that in San Diego as well?
Yep. Yeah,
Okay.
there's a lot of off-site stuff that happens too. So obviously the main stuff is at the sort of convention center that's there, but a lot of other things, podcasts,
Satellite conferences, yeah.
other events will set up at other, inside the ballrooms at some of the hotels and other things, just to sort of be present in the city.
So we could go do a Spotcast live.
We
thing?
100% could do that, but I'd be just as happy to do that at Emerald City and go hang out with Jaime in his backyard.
Where's Emerald City?
That's it's Seattle's big Comic-Con.
Oh, okay. Well, do it.
Mm-hmm.
Let's do it. Anyway, I got to run.
Okay.
So yeah, because I got to start packing and stuff, and
Cool.
before people go to bed here. So which they may already
Safe
done.
travels to both of you, and we will reconnect when we've had a chance to digest all of our finales and extra shows and everything.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Have a good one.
Take care.
Bye.
Save on O'Reilly Brake Parts Cleaner. Get 2 cans of O'Reilly Brake Parts Cleaner for just $8. Valid in-store only at O'Reilly Auto Parts.